All right, guys, Mr. Spader here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about categorizing things and why am I asking you to go ahead and group things, 10 things into 3 different groups. Well, categorizing is really important when we start talking about living things, right? We want to group things together based off of similarities that they have. That way there we can talk about things about like evolution and random mutations and things like that. So there are, depending on who you talk to, 6 or 7 kingdoms of living things that are things that we consider as scientists to be alive. The 2 big important ones are plants and animals. Also, fungi is in there as well. All the other ones are really your single-celled organisms. They're a bit more difficult to tell the differences between, but we can tell the difference between plants, animals, and fungi quite well. All right. Now, what we want to do is once we get things grouped into different families, kingdoms, we can actually start grouping them more and more and more until we get down to something very specific. You heard of something called species, right? Species comes from the same word as specific. So feline, we all know are cats. Canine, we all know are dogs, right? So those are 2 different branches off the animal kingdoms, right? And they're very, very different based off of like canines do not have claws that shoot out of their hands, right? Their claws are always out, things like that. So that's why scientists group these animals and things together. So we're going to practice grouping for a little bit. Now I'm going to attempt something here, and it's probably the craziest thing I've ever done. So what I have here is an old lunchbox. Yes, that is a Bigfoot lunchbox. It happens to be filled up with all my old Dungeons and Dragons dice that I no longer use. So instead of having 10 things to organize into 3 groups, I'm thinking what we can do is we can open up this container, pour it out, and categorize our dice into categories based off of color. And then we can see if we can take those groups and kind of narrow them down just a little bit more. So for right now, the camera is on the tripod. I think once we get these spread out and kind of organized a little bit, we'll be able to take it off the tripod and look a little bit closer. So I'm going to go by primary colors here. Most dice are different colors mixed together. Like you can see, this one here is kind of like red and white, or it's white with like red speckles. So I would call that a white die. Some of these purple dice look like they're purple and black, etc., etc. Okay, that's an orc. He does not need to get organized. He will go elsewhere. And that is a cleric of Thune. He does not have to go in there either. So for now, I'm going to take these out, and we're going to start sorting these. Okay, let's say even just that many for now. We're going to sort them into colors. I guess that was what we decided. Our kingdoms are going to be based on colors. So I would say that these like yellowish, greenish all kind of get grouped together like this. We got some pinks that can go over here and get grouped together. Oh, that's a red. That's like a weird black and white one. Here's some green. A bunch of these kind of like look like these green up here. So as I am doing this, I am looking for similarities. So in this case, these are kind of like I guess I could split these into green and yellow, because these are more yellow. And these are more green. If I spin those around, you'll see that they've got a lot of green on them. So I got a lot of purple. Purple is my favorite color. That's not surprising to me. Here's some black. This is like a gray color. The pinks are pretty cool. That is, I guess I would put that with green. Oh, here's a cool blue one. Orange, red. I've got a red over here, right? So you can see I am just trying to look at colors right now. So there's kind of white. That's kind of a white one. This is the white with the splatters we talked about. There's a bunch of pink. And the plan, after we're done with this, once we get this all sorted, is to go back through and try to figure out if we can make them into even smaller groups. Now, I know I didn't ask you guys to do that, but I think it's a really important idea to consider when we are looking at organizing our different dice. So there's some black dice. That I think is technically purple. I can't tell. The light down here is awful. I think these are all kind of purple. Oh, there's a white one. And we'll go from there. Okay? So now I've got some orange, or an orange. We got a blue, pink. We've got these kind of yellow ones, these green ones, a gray one, and so on and so forth. And of course, there's a ton more in here. So what I'm going to do to kind of simplify this a little bit is to get a bunch of these out of the way for us. So these are our different color kingdoms, we can call them, for dice. Okay? I'm going to just cut down to just the purple on the table so that you guys can see how we would narrow it down even more. So there's a couple of things we can look at. Okay? We can look at the style of the dice. Like some of them are kind of swirly, some of them are speckly, some are kind of like let light through. That is technically a purple die. Wow, that's cool. But before we do that, I think it would make more sense to kind of start with the type of dice, okay? Dividing them into type dice. There's technically like 7 or 8 different types of dice out there. So we've got a 4-sided die. We've got a 6-sided die. We've got an 8-sided dice. We've got a 10-sided dice. We've got a 20-sided dice. And yes, somehow I even own a 30-sided die. I don't even know where that came from. So if we use these as our next round of, so we had our purple kingdom. Now we're going to start cutting it down to get a little bit more specific. Now I'm going to take this pile here and sort it into 20-sided, 12-sided, etc., etc. Oh, did I not put a 12-sided out there? I didn't. Ooh, okay. I missed that one. And we will get way more specific with the groupings of our dice. Now again, you guys did not have to get more specific, but I think it's important for you to think about how maybe you could have gotten more specific with what you chose. I already saw a couple of people's, I think it was Logan shared with me his divisions. It looked pretty cool. But let's see, just about done here. Think about like, what similarities do these objects have once you get them grouped up? A good way to think about this is candy, right? If you consider gum candy, well, there are many different types of gum, right? There are gums that have like a candy coating. There are gums that come in sticks. There are gum that come in cubes, and so on and so forth. So you can actually get way more specific, even with something like gum. And then you could go down another candy branch that would take you down to like maybe there's the fruity type of candy and the chocolatey type of candy. Maybe there's the solid chocolate. Maybe there's the filled chocolate. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about classifying things into groups. You guys will actually have to classify things into groups eventually. And there is one called Candy Kingdoms, which I think we might try to do. Not sure how that would work remotely if we were still working remotely, but we'll figure it out. So, my more specific dice groups, okay? These dice groups are fairly even, with the exception of my D4s. Those are kind of like gone, I guess. So, I'm going to cut this back again and just show you my... Let's do these D10s over here. And there's a reason why I want to show you these 10-sided dice. So the 10-sided dice have, some of them actually have counting by tens on them. Some of them have single digits. And the reason why you do this in a game of D&D is because you could roll them both, and that would say 42% is the way that would work. So I think we could very easily take the ones that are double digits out and do 2 piles like that. Okay? So now we have dice, purple 10-sided dice, purple 10-sided dice with 2 digits, and purple 10-sided dice with 1 digit. And we could keep going from there. I'm not going to waste your time by getting more specific along the way. I would probably work on color next, or type of dice next. And then this one I might even actually do size of dice first before I go into color, because we got 2 really big D10s over here. So If you are choosing to categorize your 10 objects in your classroom, hopefully that, or sorry, in your house, hopefully that helped a little bit for you. Just want to real quick show you some other types of classification that I've done in my